So where am I today? Where are we? We see what looks like a tower, but it could also just be the corner of a building, of a very, very large building. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5-story building. Here we do see what looks like potentially the rest of the building. Some ruins over here. The entrance, still in pretty good shape. Some columns, some beautiful, ruined, Grecian-esque columns. Over here too, columns, the same ones, still standing. So we know what kind of building this was. This was a very Greco-Roman building. And from afar, these look like ordinary bricks with a facade on top that has mostly crumbled off, but a beautiful facade. And even this brickwork is so beautiful, the way it's offset, creating this column, but yet being all made of brick. Up here we can see the finished column and ultimately the finished product. Look way up here. Way up here we have the most preservation. Absolutely beautiful. So we can see the theme. Probably this continued. Here we see an opening. This kind of looks bricked up, perhaps cooked out, because these bricks look very strange all around it. Oh, and where are we? Sorry. So this is what we're going to look at today. If this interests you, please stick around. If not, maybe next time. Thanks for being here. I love you all, and welcome. So back to this place. Where are we? Here again we see something that almost looks like Pompeii, and really intricate flooring here. A cross section of brick running this way, and again just looking very Pompeii-like, just cooked out. And here I think is the other side of what we were looking at, perhaps. Just having it all. The brick. What about this up here? Was this originally ironwork? See if we can't get a better picture. Here's another look at the imprint, but also bricked in. And again, beautiful parts still standing, columns here, facaded columns over the brick, but most of it just lying all over the place. Somebody has just stacked it. So we are in India. Here in this little village, a place called Goa, India. And this was just shared with me in a comment, and I thank you for this. And let's zoom way out. This is like the west coast of India. I'm kind of upside down the way that we're used to seeing India, but yeah, let's go back in there. I'm gonna stay on point, though there's a lot I would like to show you around here. Let's drop the man back down, and here we are again. This cooked out window or whatever, I don't know. It looks like they offer a nice little walking tour. Yes. So here we can see what it would have looked like in its glory, and the fact that it's still holding up lends to the idea that whatever brought it down was something of cataclysmic force. But yet we could see this in a modern city and not even blink. This could be the corner of a courthouse or a bank. This is the same hand, but here we're seeing some of the oldest techniques used. And again, it is debatable for some whether this was all brick and this a different kind of stone. Some will say it was rebuilt, or was it superheated? This whole section just ballooning out, once uniformed bricks wavering and teetering from their uniformity. So really glorious, and again some of the best preservation being up here. I would love to see that, what looked like metal ironwork up here, but let's just look at a few other pictures. Here's one in this city of Goa in better shape. We can kind of see what it might have looked like in good condition. I think that said reclaimed. So here just a look at, I believe, what we're dealing with over there. Something built in this fashion, but completely cooked out. And in India, they talk about flying wars way back. Flying advanced people with craft and weaponry, battling it out, nuking each other in the old ancient times. That's part of their history, not even science fiction to them. And there we get a little taste. We can see a similar architectural style in decent shape, and then also looking like this. The history of Goa dates back to prehistoric times. Wow, there's a pretty bold opening. Prehistoric, not 1,000 or 2,000 years, not even 5,000. Prehistoric times. Prehistory. And this is the truth. I feel like subtly they're being more honest. Prehistory. Pre-our history. Too advanced for our history and the timeline that we're given. Fed as children and later in universities where you actually have to pay for it. However, as a present-day state, Goa was only established in 1987. Oh, just like yesterday. So Goa, this is nothing. This is a brand new, repurposed state in the nation of India. It's India's smallest state by area, even though it shares a lot of similarities with Indian history, especially with regard to colonial influence. So there's our hint. They will probably, of course, attribute the Greco-Roman style to a colonial influence. But look at the condition that it was in. Surely this needs a better explanation than ruins of the colonial influence. No. And if we're to believe the colonial influence, then we would have to attribute all of these ruins, these Romanesque ruins in India. It reminds me of South America, where in one way the Spaniards were said to be raiding and pillaging, but also building glorious cathedrals and infrastructure in these regions before they had populations that really needed such feats. Like this little cathedral. In Goa, we see such things, the same things in Peru and South America. I mean, the same. And I really believe that this facading would have extended all around, covering everything. I think a lot of it has weathered and just popped off for whatever reason. So I really can't even read this. You're welcome to pause and read it all. They're going to take us to the Paleolithic period and all sorts of different empires and kingdoms. And that's fine. Maybe this is all true. But I'm just interested in the last 200 years. If the last 200 years don't make sense, then I don't care what they have to say about the last 1,000 years before that. 10,000 BC. I mean, we see these brick ruins everywhere. Entire cities. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface. This entire city of Goa is a brick city in ruins, and like they said, it's its smallest population. It's the newest state. Just starting to pull an Old West on this one. Just get some people to move in, make it a state, get the utilities running, pave the streets, and sell some real estates. And that's it. That's what we're dealing with. I mean, the same thing that we have gone through in the last 100 years strong in developed nations. These countries in 1987, isn't that what they told us, are just beginning to get their shit together. Let's have a look at this city. It's all jungled over, but it's just filled with ruins everywhere. I could tell, even from above, the way the streets are laid out. Here's where the tower is that we were looking at. And all this is all ruins. Let's drop us in the center here. Here we go. Right in the middle of this mess. Come on. What was this? The wall that just fell over? What is going on here? This really reminds me of the ruins in Mexico City, infused with bones. This is mind-blowing right here. This absolutely appears to have all gone soft for a moment at least. Let me know your thoughts. What is with this wall? Is this real? Can I zoom in here? Did you guys see that? Here's another one, just a perfect slab. So this is just so mind-blowing. We are in pure exploration mode. Just as fascinating as the ruins of Pompeii, these are the ruins of Goa, India. Look at this. Look at that again. I'm dying to get up there. And again, the arch is bricked in. We're on the inside of the structure now. And we can see points where metal may have gone through. And there is a lot of concrete facading, but ultimately this is a brick core in the Greco-Roman fashion. Zillions of bricks here, zillions. Certainly in this town surrounding it. I think I would move here. Where else can we go? How about just somewhere over here in this corner? Okay, we're in a nice room here. And again, you can see an old archway, so was it just purely ornamental? And we're just seeing the impression? I'm not sure, but the condition is very similar inside and outside. The facading, the cement mixture has totally sloughed off, and just parts of it remaining. I mean, this thing was a beast. Just a massive cathedral. And I think things get preserved when they are so massive. Nobody could remove this, claim it as their own. It's just a mess. Some things have perhaps been covered up. So again, just out here. I mean, first of all, let me just say that those ruins appear to be, at least, I'll be generous, 400 years old. And in 1987, they're just starting to establish this area, making it a modern state. And I'll show you how remote it is. I mean, you have to go over so many rivers and swamplands just to get here. Rivers on all sides. Just a very difficult place to establish anything. Let me reorient my north here. Okay. So here we go. It was over here. Today, a couple miles away, you have a DoubleTree by Hilton. It looks very nice. Right on this river, and pretty much in a small village today. Looks like a lot of agriculture. Here is a modern place with a veterinary clinic. Let's have a look here. Okay, so look at this. Very nice. Almost having a Caribbean feel. Here's a water buffalo. And here's the Basilica of Jesus. Let's have a look at this. Ah, yes. The Basilica of Jesus. So the same thing, in good condition. Seeming real hodgepodgey with the windows. I just can't tell. What would it have looked like in its glory? Were they all windows at one point and some have been bricked over? Or were they all bricked over and some have been turned into windows? I don't know. And here it continues across the street. What do we have here? Some sort of column, some stupa, some ornamentation, looking a little more like the India that we're used to up here, like a bell, but also tech. How great. Let's back up a little and get a good look at this tech. There we go. Super, super intricate. To be made of brick is what I'm saying. To be made of anything, but the fact that this is made of brick with this inlaid design, I still feel like we could get a better angle. There we go. There we go. And notice the symbols. Notice the symbols. 1 and 2. Old world. I mean, the symbols of the people that are found all throughout the realm in a time before they should have any ability to communicate or travel. And in ruins. In absolute ruins. And being such a poor region here, or at least before 1987, this has all been preserved, and we get a look at what our old cities look like everywhere. This next part really sucks, but there might be some nuggets in there. So here it is before I delete it. Here's just some parting thoughts that I had while walking in nature. And there have been all the Phoenix phenomenon events within this 5,000 years, every 138 years. And so anything that we're seeing that's giant bones or melted buildings or giant petrified trees, all of this would have happened within the 5,000 year cycle. And the demise of all these things being the Phoenix events, the 138 years within the greater simulacron cycle. And I say this because if there is such a thing, the simulation would have no need to include all these ruins. It would start over from scratch. We wouldn't see the wasteland that we do. Everything would just be fresh and new. However, the simulacron would choose to start over. They made a detour of the highway, and most people just bypass this old downtown. Here's the last few pages. It looks like the publisher is plugging their company, W.M. Welsh, out of Omaha, Nebraska. And here they say, "We supply any book published." Many of the old books of the past were probably not published. Even Fulcanelli's Mystery of the Cathedrals, we're told only 100 books were manufactured for a select few. When you go into the train station, you can just smell waffles and maple and vanilla. I was originally going to walk and ended up hitchhiking from Paris to Amsterdam. I enjoyed Belgium, but my favorite city was Antwerp, or Antwerpen. Just a gorgeous city. You could tell it had been through a reset. Even then, with my 18-year-old eyes, every other building was taken out, replaced with something modern, and the ones remaining, I now realize, are what we would call Tartarian, or Old World. This is a practice take on my thoughts, and mostly my thoughts on God. I love God and have a relationship with what to the non-believer would seem like a magical relationship or fantasy, again, if one was a non-believer. But I have a connection to God, and I believe without any books, God would make itself available to certainly any conscious human. It would work small miracles until you would become conscious of its presence and interaction, and almost comical, but yet magical interaction. And I used to debate this with my friend Bob, a Christian pastor. Pastor Bob, my good friend. And Bob would try to convince me to give my life over to Jesus. And I would argue with him and say, why is it not enough to give my life over to God? Surely the Lord would not care what we call him. The source, essentially a source. As I said, a comical, of course, beyond intelligent and magic working force. And surely this force, this infinite force responsible for creation and everything, so intelligent, so able to manifest things that should not be manifestable in the moment, in a flash, changing reality, it would seem, doing impossible things that some would call coincidence. Why would this force care what we call it? And surely it was only trying to get our attention. It only cared about a relationship, and that we would change our ways through my actions. And if I was on the right course, well, I would just be allowed to continue on that course. But if I was on the wrong course, then it was clear to me, and I would apologize to the Lord and turn the steering wheel of my life back on the right course. And sometimes this meant my thoughts, and only a higher power would know my thoughts and perform signs that I would recognize. And these signs based on whether my thoughts were in accordance with good or bad would vary. And again, I believe without any books or giving one's life to any particular name, this would be available. And I used to use the example with my friend Pastor Bob of the pygmies. I used to say, what of the pygmies? Surely God would be available to the pygmy. No, I've given my life to God. God holds a place within my heart, within my mind, simply the temple or the vessel for this spirit. And I know that's enough if we're dealing with this super creator, this super intelligence that is linked to our thoughts and that can manifest impossible deeds in this realm in accordance with our thoughts as signs to steer us back on course of the good. And again, this is available to all who have never even heard of Western teachings or Eastern. So that's it. I thank you for joining me this week. Do have a blessed day. I love you all. Sorry about the randomness of that last part. God bless, and I'll see you soon.